So I talked about this on my shorts feed, but I realized that the Dwarf Fortress descriptions of creatures and player units are so specific and so itemized that they actually feed into AI generative art perfectly, pretty easily. Before we even start, let me just say, and I know that this is all really controversial stuff, I'm just trying to have fun here. I hope that people enjoy. And I'm not going to be singing the praises of this AI completely either. There's going to be some things that we can clown it about as well. So I hope you'll stick with me. We're going to talk about the good and the bad. So I chose this first image because the creature being described really doesn't exist. And I think that's a good test of, can we use this to depict things that haven't already been depicted? And so for this first forgotten beast, his name is Ost, towering eyeless shrimp. One point right off the bat, I think that only the bottom left image there has a white, like a milked over eye, anything that would imply blindness. The rest feature multiple eyes. Not perfect, but again, I'm using, links and stuff will be in the description. I'm using Microsoft Bing's create image. It's the most basic free AI art software, and I'm just doing one iteration. I'm not like carefully working with these images. I'm literally just translating. I'm saying, what does Dwarf Fortress say this looks like? And I'm telling that like a game of telephone, more or less directly to the AI. Yeah, 1 point off the bat because it does still depict eyes, but so what we're talking about here, the rest of it is pretty good. A towering eyeless shrimp. It has lacy wings, which the thing actually nailed. It gave me 4 different types of lacy wings, which is really cool. And it squirms and fidgets. So on any of these screenshots, you're going to see my actual prompt as compared to the text given to me by Dwarf Fortress. That's for full, scientific transparency. So you can say, he changed certain things. I did change certain things to try in my, single pass attempt to explain it as clearly as possible to the AI. This forgotten beast, it also has blue-gray exoskeleton that the AI nailed that, and is warty. The AI also pretty much nailed that, I would say. It gave me a warty, blue-gray, big shrimp. Again, it didn't seem to understand eyeless too much. It took one crack at it on the lower left. And then beware its deadly dust, which I changed. That's an example of how I modify it. So I said a cloud of dust surrounds it, because beware its deadly dust is, more literary. The machine's not going to understand this. I hope also that this video can help people, if you haven't messed around with generative AI, make it a little less mystifying. It really is a tool like any other. It seems to be, for now at least, with apologies to our future AI overlords, potentially. Okay, so one thing that you do need to know about the fortress that I'm using for these prompts is that it did somehow become like an Athens, where it became like this beautiful city on the hill for artists and poets and dancers. Oh, so here's how I did it. If you want a city like this, set your dwarf cap to 100, and then set your total population cap to 150. I didn't realize, I don't know what I thought was going to happen. I guess I thought that the overhead, that 50 unit overhead would be used for traders and things. But in this case, all that's happened is poets and dancers and performers from all over the realm are specifically coming to my fortress and living here, petitioning to live here. So now a third of my population are you're going to see some very beautiful fantasy characters. And, the other thing is that I haven't even been hacking their happiness. If you look up at the top, you'll see my population is pretty happy. And I honestly think it's because it's it seems to be some kind of art and entertainment destination. So everybody here is on vacation. They're feeling good. Anyway, so that's just to explain. You're going to see some real pretty elves and goblins and things, and it's that's just what it is. This is the Hollywood of Dwarf Fortresses. Description for this one: his hair is extremely long. He is skinny. He has a low voice. He has somewhat short ears. His somewhat short ears are splayed out. Head is narrow. His hair is saffron. He is virtually never sick and very agile, but he's also flimsy. I included that because I don't know. These machines. Dwarf Fortress is a robot and AI is a robot, so I don't know what is going to be most meaningful for them to talk to each other. So I'm trying to stay out of it unless I really feel I could translate better, like in the last example. But here you see we got the lower right kind of looks like the Twilight guy. He's very brooding. Leave it in the comments if you know whose face that is in the lower left. I can't quite place it. I get a Pirates of the Caribbean vibe from the upper right. And I like the upper left. The upper left is actually probably how I imagine this guy, actually. That one's pretty good. The other interesting thing you'll see a few times is that if I give it extra text that it doesn't really know what to do with, it will, and if it can work it into the prompt as actual printed text, the AI, at least, Bing's the derivation of these specific image generators that Bing and Microsoft are using now. It is a common thing now in November 2023 where if AI does not know what to do with extra text that you give it, and it can think of an excuse to print the text in the background or somewhere on the image, it'll just print kind of garbled versions of that text, which is very, very interesting. I'm how the AI is learning and trying to make human clients happy. So finally we get to some of the dwarves, and don't worry, there are going to be at least the fair share of dwarf examples in this one. So in this case, I was captivated by the subject matter, which was a child dwarf who had gotten themselves somehow trapped in a cage trap. And so this happens if you play enough Dwarf Fortress, someone will fall into a cage trap, or there'll be some accident, they'll get pushed onto a cage trap by a combatant, something will go wrong, and it's pretty rare, but they will be caged, and the game doesn't really handle it well, because the other dwarves, they won't let them out, and in recognition of the mistake, they will leave them there until you, as the player, say, hey, why, you're in DF hack or something, and you're like, hey, why can't this dwarf sleep? This dwarf is complaining that they haven't slept in like a week, and it's because they've been caged and left in a stockpile like an animal or an invader who would normally be caged that way. So anyway, I found this guy, and before I freed him, I typed in the prompt, and this is one where I did a little more human creative liberty, where I changed the prompt to try to get more, and it didn't really work in this case, so that's another thing where even when I try to, in a single pass, get more information to the AI, it kind of ignores some of it, at least in this case. But so I specifically say, as an example of, you've heard a few of the Dwarf Fortress descriptions, so here's how I might massage a description to maybe help the AI understand, although it didn't really work in this case. So I said, fantasy painting style of a dwarven child who is angry that he has trapped himself in a large cage. His face features a full and bushy beard. I added that because I did not know if the AI would know that the Dwarf Fortress rules are that everyone has a beard. Women have beards, children have beards. That's going to come up later in another dwarf generation example. I specify that they have beards because that is what is canon. So, fight me in the comments. But so I added that in this case. And then I go back to the description as listed. I'm happy with it. I mean, it turned out nice. But, maybe not as emotive as if I had commissioned a human artist in this case. Now, this one, I'm pleased and I'm not pleased with how the AI handled it. Because, so the top left and the bottom right, both to me, I think really are great. I think they paid attention, every part of it. Specifically, my criteria is recessed chin, which is a very specific description. And I feel that the AI specifically took it into account on left and right, top left and bottom right. It's not as clear on the ones that are head-on. It may also have taken it into account. So it did a good job. It seems it wants to fight me on... I just clearly say her hair is crimson red. And it's like, for the bottom two, or even for all of them, the AI was like scared to give me bright red. And it was like, well, like most fantasy goblins have black hair, right? So I'll give you black hair with like red highlights. It's like, okay, that's not what I asked for. It's also, again, these are all single pass attempts. I could easily touch that up in a later edit. I do have a little crush on the top left one. She's extra good. Again, this is the Hollywood. Actually, you see the grid of characters to the left of my description there on the screen. So it's the images, the description, and then just a grid of people. That is the Waterfall Cafe, where live shows of singing and dancing and poetry are occurring 24 hours. Again, that's why the mood you can see here. It's hard to be unhappy in this town. So I believe that she is either a poet or a dancer. It doesn't even say here. Oh, she might even be. Oh, you know what? There was a jailbreak at one point because we also get goblin invaders. I'm wondering if she is actually no, but she's in the grid she's hanging out. She's hanging out at the party, so she must be an entertainer of some kind, even though she doesn't have it listed. Anyway, moving on. Now, this is a fun one because it was a totally procedurally generated, really weird monster that this is not how I pictured it, but the AI also did a great job. So it generated 4 pictures, and this was the closest one. So the description, just if you're just listening, a great scaly bristleworm. It has a round shell, and it appears to be emaciated. Its cinnamon scales are oval-shaped and overlapping. That's tough to say. Its cinnamon scales are oval-shaped and overlapping. Beware its webs. I typed all this in. I think I did that one. So none of the prompts got everything, but this one was the closest in terms of it is scaly, it is bristly, it is a worm. It does have a round shell that is also covered with scales. I wouldn't describe it as emaciated exactly. It is cinnamon colored and it is completely covered with scales, and the scales do overlap. It does completely ignore the web aspect. I think other prompts I did were more off base in general, but they had webs, but this is the one I went with. I pictured more of a deep sea polycate, but I don't know what I pictured. I didn't, a worm with a shell. It is kind of a snail. Honestly, the AI did a great job on a crazy prompt from Dwarf Fortress. So now this one I like. No complaints. They really got every part of it. So description is, she is a human swordswoman. Swordsman. The game says human swordsman. I don't know, don't come for me on that. Swords person. Her wavy, dense hair is extremely long. Her eyelashes are extremely short. Didn't really do that. It still kind of gave her pretty eyelashes. Even though the game told the AI not to give model-esque eyelashes, it still did it out of habit. But I'm not complaining necessarily. It also kind of cheated away from this description. It says her nose is slightly hooked. I don't know, guys. I would describe that as an upturned nose, as opposed to a hooked nose. I think it kind of blanked me on that part too. Her head is somewhat short. I don't even know how you quantify that. So I kind of don't know what to do with that instruction. I don't blame the AI for not knowing. Her hair is goldenrod. It got that right. Her skin is brown. Again, AI, you might want to check yourself before you wreck yourself. Her skin is a light tan at best, maybe, kind of like olive skinned, as they say, but you kind of cheaped us out on that instruction. Her eyes are chocolate. They got that part right. And she's clearly a swordswoman, which, points for that as well. Overall, you might call this bad casting for the original description, but otherwise pretty on point. And now for another lovely lady of the fortress. You may not like it, but this is what peak dwarven performance looks like. Again, I specified specifically, this is Dwarf Fortress lore. Men, women, and children have luscious, full beards, full enough to catch a fish. That's the rule. That's how it works. So it has to be thick enough for a fish to get caught in it. I would say that this did a pretty good job. That looks like a lovely young dwarven lady to me. I noticed I put in I marked up this image. I specified that she had a scar as the original description specified that she had a scar. And only one of these actually picked up on it. So, you gotta... That's really helpful when you're doing AI art is, if you can get a bunch of samples and then pick the one that was actually paying attention to the thing that you want to specify. Because like two of these have like big anime eyes. Like I didn't ask for that necessarily. But it got the color scheming right. It followed the instructions for the color palette. And I guess the most accurate one is the one that actually shows the scar on her arm. So, so I say go with that one, bottom left. Here's another one where I took a little more creative liberty because the game didn't give me as much to work with necessarily. All we know is it's a agitated giant fly. And I'll be honest, I lost the original screenshot where we actually look in more detail at its body figure. So all I had was that it was an agitated giant fly, seriously injured, and didn't feel anything while in conflict. So my prompt was a little more, like I said, a little more creative liberty on my part. I said, in the style of a hand-painted fantasy trading card, an agitated giant fly. It is seriously injured, but didn't feel anything while in combat, which is what the game tells me from this prompt. It actually says conflict, but I said combat. Another little human creative difference, I guess. Turned out cool. It's definitely pulling from like Magic the Gathering pretty hard, which, so it picked up what I was laying down when I said the generic name for Magic the Gathering and described it as a hand-painted fantasy trading card. Again, this is the strongest example of like where it'll just take, if it doesn't know what to do with some of my text, or if it needs text in this case because it's trying to make trading cards, it will just kind of print gibberish that is generated loosely around the text I gave it, which, I don't know, kind of creeps me out. I'm hoping there'll be a more elegant solution in the future for AI. I even remember a year ago when it couldn't make hands. AI image generation couldn't make hands, and so it would make these gnarled hands with like hundreds of fingers. And then, people just started training the AI being like, no, check the hands, make sure they're normal. I think this is probably something that's going to change in the future, where somebody or, some AI or some group of AI prompt users will be like, instead of making garbled text that kind of has to do with the original prompt, instead of just repeating that part back weirdly, I think we and the machines can come to an agreement. I'm, optimistic that we can think of something even better than that. This one I like. This one just really turned out good. The description is he is a goblin crossbow man. He's wearing armor, and it's a painted fantasy style. His hair is long. Short, broad body with a lot of fat on it. They got that. He still looks cool. He looks like a fun Pixar character. All four of these I would like best. I think my favorite, I like the bottom right one. I don't know. There's just a lot of personality in that face. That feels right to me. Although, let me check now that I'm noticing, only two of them are just archers. The top left and the bottom right are just archers. The only ones that have crossbows are the top right and the bottom left. I actually have gun style repeating or mechanized bows. So, okay, points off for a few of those, but these were great. If I could get the face of the one in the bottom right with an actual crossbow in his hands, that would be the perfect one for a character design. Oh, and that's actually my last one. I got so into this kind of like art critique of Dwarf Fortress prompts in AI that I forgot that I had only prepared 9 this time. I'll do another one. Definitely, give this video some love. If, like and comment, argue with me in the comments. My heart broke the most when I realized that AI was going to replace a lot of the creative stuff that previously only I had been able to do. So my heart goes out to visual artists. I know that this is a tough time. I'm definitely not trying to make light of that. I hope that, again, seriously, the human community can learn to use these new tools that are offered, because I think the genie's out of the bottle on this one, to be honest, chaps. I've been through the 5 stages of grief on... Anyway, it's a brave new world. That's my only point. And I hope we can navigate it together, and be creatives. Just be exactly like we are, Use the new tools, rise to the challenge, and keep being the creatives that we are alongside our new robot friends. And that's all I have for today. Leave it in the comments if you're mad at me. And I'll see everybody next time.